Hello, this is Pop Up Divorce TV, and I've just grabbed Una Archer for a short interview because I've been writing a blog about Lady Di, and she talks about a very painful experience in her past. And she says she was haunted by the sound of the footsteps on gravel of her mother walking away. And that was at the end of a very vicious, severe custody battle between her parents over the children, which her mother lost. And I wondered how much an experience like that can affect a child and how it can influence their future. And of course, one of the perfect people to talk to about this is Una Archer, who is a psychologist. And what else are you, Una? Tell us why we should listen to you on this. How do you know your stuff?
Well, I'm a psychologist. I spent 6 years at uni full time studying development, so from cells to thought and language. And then I took a slightly unconventional route for a psychologist. I set up and ran a childcare setting. So I did my bit of learning from research papers and books and things like that. And then I really felt that, to properly understand children, I needed to spend lots and lots of time with them. So I spent years doing long 10-hour days with children, and I feel that experience really gave me, felt understanding of what's it like to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and how children see the world, how they process the world, how they grow, how they develop, and probably most importantly, what it is that they actually need to grow up healthy and thrive.
So you definitely know your stuff then. So what would you say then from your experience, a child, say between the ages of say 7 and 11, who have that kind of an experience where they're fought over by their parents, and because some people will go, well, it's all in the courts, it doesn't really affect them, but I mean, intuitively we know it does, but from as an expert in the field, what kind of experience does a child have?
Well, two things that spring to my mind straight away. One is that, from all the research into secure attachment, we know that child's main emotional need is to have a secure base, is to have at least one person, better if there's more, of course, that is emotionally available to them. And what does it actually mean? They are there. The child trusts that they can go to that person, whatever the situation is, good, bad, ugly, uncomfortable, they will be welcome. And that experience of being held and just being just good enough because you are, and that person is there committed to being there for meeting all your needs, because children are so dependent on their parents. It's literally their lifeline. And
So would one of the issues be in that situation that the parents are completely almost detached from the child? They're so caught up in their own anger, and even though they might be fighting over the children, that they are become emotionally not available for those children.
Yeah, that's right. And if you imagine, I think, we often talk about it in the context of childbirth, those ways of functioning on oxytocin, where you just hear, you're nurturing, you're sensitive, you're noticing, and it's just kind of, you are in that warm bubble. And, we need that not only to birth children, but also bring up emotionally healthy children. And, as like literally opposite to that is running on cortisol, and that's probably what happens to parents when they're caught up in the battle. All your systems, you have your armor up, you're scanning the horizon for danger, you're ready to react. You cannot be there and emotionally available to respond to the child's signals.
You're sort of in warrior mode, and although you're protecting the children, actually you're in effect doing them harm, because there are one of the things that I often hear that I remember really surprised me when I first heard it is that how children blame themselves when their parents not just split up, but if they're fighting or there's anger and it's a nasty acrimonious divorce, that the children and for some reason blame themselves. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, of course. So, developmentally, it's safer for children to blame themselves rather than their parents. If we come back to that idea, just how important that connection with their parent is. So, if you think about it, if they think about the parent as good, they still have hope for survival. Does it make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's safer for them to think, okay, there's something wrong with me, but my parent is okay.
Yeah, so they have to believe that the parent is omnipotent and right in a way, because otherwise they're completely helpless. So it's almost the safest thing is to assume that if there's anything wrong, it must be something to do with them, because in a way they have a bit of power over it. In a way, they can change their behavior. But of course, in these situations, there's nothing they can do because it's not really their fault at all. So I guess it's true to say that they then take that belief with them through the rest of their lives, and that must have quite an impact. Because do you think that at some point a child grows up and then goes, oh no, of course it wasn't my fault, it was nothing to do with me? Do you think they even have those conscious processes unless they work it through in some way?
Yeah, unless they work. Well, you never know. It's a bit of a mystery of how these things work, and I think both things happen to people. Some, um, you know, carry on living with that deep sense of there's something wrong with me. I have to keep the appearance of, that I'm okay, and with that fear of what will happen if people really find out what I'm like. And it's hard work to just keep that up and keep doubting and keep trying so hard. And yeah, so it's either via therapy or being in a relationship where you just have that experience of what's it like to feel safe with another person, what's it like to be accepted with all of your human mess. You realize, okay, so it can be different. I'm actually okay.
But the horrible truth is, isn't it, Una, that quite often people will gravitate towards the very relationships that don't provide them with that. It's almost like we keep repeating the same traumas until some kind of resolution is found. Do you notice or believe that there are long-term consequences for children who have to protect themselves by taking the blame on themselves for their parents' behavior? How does it affect them in later life and the relationships they choose, and the world they create around themselves? What's the
Mm,
legacy?
yeah. Well, it's very hard to just answer it in a few sentences because the possibilities and the options are endless, probably as many as there are people who go through that experience. And just circling back to what we already spoke about,
I
I
do
believe.
remember. I remember a few years ago, going quite a long time ago, actually going to a school reunion,
Mm,
and around the table, I was finding that everyone there, had parents who had split up, and except for and there was only and had and the only there seemed to be a common theme, is that they had all struggled to find healthy relationships, apart from one couple who weren't even married. They're living together,
mm,
and there just seemed
yeah.
to be this sort of anecdotal experience that there does seem to be some kind of a legacy. And I have definitely spoken to people and interviewed people who've realized that their issues with relationships come from the relationships of their parents. So if their experience of their parents' relationship has been very toxic, and where they're laden with guilt, it's not going to do them any good, is it? Basically, it's not going to help them.
Yeah, as I want to slightly shift the focus of the conversation
Yeah.
to the relationship between the parent and the child. I believe it's more about child having that secure base.
Mm.
And in the intact family where parents are living together in the same household, the child can still grow up without having
Yeah.
that experience of
Mm.
feeling safe in the relationship. And in a similar way, children who grow up in we can call them transformed families
Yes.
that have good relationship with either one or both parents, and they grow up just knowing in themselves like what's it like to be in a healthy relationship.
Mm. And I think I love that, transform families. And one of the other interesting things about Diana's story is how that after things became peaceful, in a sense, she and her brothers were moved from family, mum to dad, backwards and forwards, but that the parents weren't doing what you were just saying. They weren't then settling down, connecting with the child. They were trying to compensate with material possessions, and when all they wanted was to be loved. And it was quite heartrending to read. So what can parents do who perhaps might be listening to this and be aware that this is an experience that their children might be having a taste of, and they may feel powerless because they may be that the other parent has not quite realised the harm that's being done. They're so caught up in their own drama. So for the parents who can see beyond that, what kind of very simple things can we share with them now that could actually make quite a profound difference?
Yeah. And I love what you said, simple, and that's what I would like to bring. And three things come to mind. So the first one is focusing on being that secure base for your child. And so I think for children, especially the young children, they're quite self-centered, I believe, still. So, and for them, their understanding is quite simple. Whether that person, their experience is either that person is there for me or it isn't there for me. The wider context of what's happening, I don't know how much they can take all of that on. So focusing on creating that experience of, right, I've got something who is there for me. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I want to really make it very clear that I think there's too much focus in our society on just that one person being there. Raising up a child is really a shared responsibility, and especially if you're going through separation, if you're going through time, reach out, your friends, your family, whatever support you can get to support you in that, because you are going through a lot and you really, really do need support. And the third thing is circling back to what I said about from functioning on cortisol or functioning on oxytocin.
How can we bring more oxytocin in? Because cortisol makes you fat.
There's loads of things, good sleep, good food, being with other people, touch. And also I created a meditation that's called Breathing Space that is designed to down-regulate the stress response and bring it, if you listen to it regularly, so create that habit in your nervous system of being in that calm place. So once we've done, I'll paste the link in the comments. It's free. It's 15 minutes. You can download it and listen to it as and when you need.
Even older parents where their child's left home do it as well?
Well, absolutely. Yeah,
so it's
I
for everybody.
It all the time.
Fantastic. Because we could all do with a bit more oxytocin and a bit more, being a bit more connected to things. So so that's lovely to hear that it's not all doom and gloom. There's often very simple things that you can do. And I guess the key is, and I think this is what I got from the little scene of Diana's story, is that sense of almost abandonment. It wasn't just that her mother wasn't allowed to be there all the time anymore. It was the fact that there was kind of nobody who came in and paid attention to the real needs of the children, whether it's the state, the law, the parents, the rest of the family. So even as grandparents or family friends, if we see children who are caught up in these kind of dramas, even if it's just to sit with them with a meditation and be calm and be somebody solid for them for 15 minutes, that would be something special. Thank you very much for sharing that. And
it's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, Susie.
And just for everyone watching, watch out, because Una's going to pop that link on there. And I'm definitely listening to it later. I'm going to have more.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Sheena. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye everyone.